Look, I'm not supposing I'm going to have the last word. I might, but I don't think reliably I can claim something like that. Do you see? It's most important that I not be the guru, not be the teacher. I'm not seeking that catastrophic error. And if you treat me as that anyway, that would be extremely unfortunate. I think. It's not required, it's not necessary. Why make such an heroic assumption or catastrophic mistake, possibly? It's not required of you. What's required of you, well, it's wrong to say that even. What's best for you is this notion of loving God with all your heart, soul, mind and strength. Not the teacher. That's as I understand it. And I think hopefully you understand it that way too. That's really all I can say. And probably all that I need to say, as I see it. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. You might say, but has Jesus given such a suggestion? Well, I think he has. He says, why do you call me good? Why dost thou call me good? None is good but my Father in heaven. I mean, that is that in a nutshell, isn't it? Who made me a judge over you? Goodness, we've made him God. He's the judge of all heaven, all things. The final judge. That's a surprise. Where did that come from? There's something very questionable happening here. Jesus as example. Yes, well, that might be the case. That's what the story's about. Certainly we're taken with the goodness of Jesus in the face of such difficulties in the story. But fortunately, the story is limited to what it is. You can read into it all sorts of things, which religion does. But you know it's not necessarily reliable as a story. It's limited. It presents a certain picture, in this case of Jesus, say. And, well, whoever wrote the story, even if it's God himself, wants to help. But it's not the sort of help that materializes itself before you as Jesus day in and day out directs everything you do, and in a sense takes away your autonomy because of his power and wisdom and love. Love of our children doesn't take away their autonomy. We let them make small mistakes so that they learn by them. We do our best to avoid them having big mistakes. We don't want it to be catastrophic. Do you see? And to put you and me in a world of the transitory is the very essence of that, isn't it? If things go wrong and you bump out of this world, well, that's all right. You've come home to tea, and perhaps tomorrow we have a different lesson. Perhaps in the same world, the reincarnation view of life is valid. Or perhaps in a different environment, some in between, a bit like the Catholics believe in purgatory, some sort of in-between place of correction. Not sure as I'm at all happy with the notion of purgatory, especially as I don't come from that sort of culture and background. Catholic, I mean. But you see, that could be a possibility, couldn't it? I've argued, haven't I, that the uncertainty gives us freedom to test things out and see the consequences in a transitory situation, not a permanent damnation consequence. Christian religion has ended up with a permanent damnation consequence in the interpretation, as I see it, of Revelation, which is that some don't make it and are thrown into the eternal pit with the great deceiver, and he and they are eternally damned. This doesn't ring out to me as my God. I feel my God is greater than that. You may think it's extremely optimistic, but he's able to perfect all things that he's made, and that he's made all things. And you may not feel this is a reasonable stance, position, view to take. Well, we'll each learn according to the view that we do take in this transitory type of environment, is my hope. Not that I must get you to change your view, or you must get me to change mine. In other words, I live in the certain trust, or I say certain, I live in a particular trust view, trusting what I take to be of God, until it's shattered by my experience. Yes, that's true. But if he's teaching me and he wants me to strengthen in this view, he's not going to go shattering with consequences to the contrary. Not my God, he wouldn't do that because he's a loving dad. Do you see, I turn majorly on this notion that Jesus' story's got it right. That taking the view that he's my loving heavenly dad, Abba, Father, heavenly dad, is the way to go. There's something that rings true about that for me. Valid from my point of view, and I really feel I must follow that unless he really demonstrates to me otherwise that I'm wrong. It should be something else. How do you feel? What's your view? I mean, the story has lasted 2,000 years, but I wouldn't say it's been followed by the Christian church by any means. So the fact that it has been preserved for 2,000 years is, in some sense, appropriate, but not in itself conclusive. There's something about whether it appeals to you or not, which determines whether you're going to follow it or not. I think that Jesus' comment on something like this is, except you receive the kingdom of heaven as a little child, you cannot enter therein. Not sure whether he means literally when you were a child, like if you didn't receive enough love from mum or dad or someone, then you can't catch up in later life. Or whether he means unless you receive it as of the realization of your character, being childlike, trusting of those that seem to be benefiting you. I mean, typically and hopefully mum and dad, that you should trust them. That in some sense you're lost if you don't. I suppose I'd be a bit more specific and say, whoever you have found to trust, it seems reasonable to trust them because they've been feeding you for the last 7 years or something, you know. I mean, you have been sharing their home. You know, when you're frightened, they are the person you run to. Then you should trust them. Now, in the world, you're going to find that they're not perfect, and sometimes the things that they're requiring of you are not godly. Well, you're going to realize that and recognize that with maturity and experience. But not yet, love. You're only 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15, 16. Well, yeah, you're beginning to see the faults in mum and dad, and the fact that he eats meat doesn't mean to say I have to eat meat. The fact that she didn't get on too well at church doesn't mean to say I might not get on well at church. Let's have a look at it, see what it's like. Do you see? And you then act accordingly and find out accordingly whether you are going to become vegetarian or stay at church or whatever it is. But you come to find your feet gradually. But in the early stages, it's best to say, look, put your trust in those that seem to have been helpful and a blessing to you. The basic good rule of thumb, isn't it? Thank you, Heavenly Dad. So what I'm saying is that probably that you're now an adult in the material world. You're at a point where you can risk making these judgments yourself. You're going to do what you have to date basically learned to be right and follow through on that. And God may well iron out a few points to you and show that, for instance, perhaps patriotism's not such a good principle. I usually use that one. Perhaps caring for all of mankind might be more the way you wish to go. And even for all life, that you don't want to be part of the slaughter to eat, especially where it's not pressing that you have to do so. You can avoid such, just eat other things without presumably catastrophic consequences for health. We're not asking that you sacrifice yourself, only asking that you do what is well within your power to make life more godly. God is not a good parent, doesn't require some extremism of you. Just do what you can, love. I'll rescue you where you make mistakes. Don't worry. You don't have to stress over it. I want you to enjoy your childhood and your teenage years. And what we see as adulthood here is actually a childhood relationship to an infinite God, isn't it? We may be adults of 77 in my case, you know, but I mean, I'm still a child relative to the fantastic consciousness, awareness and experience and ability and wonderfulness of God. So I'm thinking of him in terms of being a good dad to me. And perhaps something about this that appeals to you as well. Bless you. Thank you, Dad.